Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. It's David Horsager, and I have a special guest, a brilliant woman, entrepreneur. She's helped build an 8-figure consulting business, a 7-figure coaching business in short order. And she has gone from kind of sleeping on the couch, doing sales door to door a decade or maybe more ago to 2 beautiful kids. Her husband is a dear friend of mine also. They're family friends. They reside in Nashville. Please welcome the CEO, co-founder of Brand Builders Group, AJ Vaden. Thanks for being on.
Oh, thank you. That makes me sound so fancy.
Man. Clients from Bridgestone to Verizon Cellular to DIRECTV. I'm really glad to have you on because, you know, we know each other as friends also, but I know you also. I mean, just watching and being alongside both of you building your businesses and making a huge impact along the way. We love that. And I think, you know, you've got these 2 beautiful sons. I've been to your home and stayed there in Nashville. What an amazing place. But Jasper and Liam, let's start with just a little bit of who you are and actually even back to how you got your start in sales, because I think that's interesting. And then we're going to jump to and spend most of our time on your newest national study, Trends in Personal Branding, because I think everybody can learn something and take away something from that. We're going to give away access to that, special access. But before, just, you know what, AJ, give us a start, a little background, who you are.
Okay, well, I would say the most important job I have is the job as mom to Jasper and Liam. I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I think they were both born old souls. And it's so funny because my oldest is 4.5, which he will very distinctively remind you every single time you say that he's 4, but he's in this little homeschool hybrid. And I work from home, and so he gets to be home a lot, but he goes to this homeschool hybrid 3 days a week. And his facilitator, her name is Miss Heather, and she's very encouraging of just letting their natural personalities flourish and not to dismantle any sort of irregular behavior, like when he's bossing us around or, you know, bossing his little brother around, but just teaching him how to channel that, right? So I've been trying to work on that, and he comes and he works in my office on occasion, and he helps my husband with his podcast. So anyways, he's at school one day, and he's literally bossing all the kids around, telling them what to do and how to do it. And so it gets to the point that all these other little kids are like telling their mom, like, Jasper's really mean to us. Jasper's really bossy. Jasper's always telling us what to do. And so I approach his teacher one day and I'm like, okay, you haven't brought this up. And now I'm concerned that my kid is a bully. And she goes, no, he's not a bully. He just has really great leadership potential.
There you go.
It's one of my favorite stories of like the last year. We always talk about Jasper's leadership potential, i.e. just a little boss.
I've got some strong kiddos too. And I do see, you know, one of mine I think of a lot. I think they all have some unique leadership gifts in different ways. They're all 4 very different. But one of them is very strong and a little bit like, oh man, but she does amazing now. And you can see as she's grown up and into college, like some of those things have softened in her, and some of that strength and passion and will. It's so cool to see who she's becoming, you know, as a leader.
I know. It's one of my biggest fears as not just a parent, but as a human, is that I would diminish the light of someone around me by not just letting them be who they are. And it's been such a great test of restraint to just go, all right, I'm going to channel this. I'm going to put it in a positive direction.
Discipline, I would argue discipline, correction in the right way in love is healthy as well. And we all need it. And in fact, we all are held accountable every day, whether it's to our bottom line or our people. And so learning some restraint. It's not all bad for sure.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
I want to get into the study, but before I do think it's interesting, when we first met, hearing your story of basically kind of sleeping on couches wherever, selling door to door, and you became one of the, if you go way back, one of the top salespeople back when people sold, I want to say, books of some kind. And that's bigger I believe in the South. I think they used to do it up here, but I don't know for sure. Hopefully we still read as much in the North because I'm a big into reading. But tell us just about a quick glimpse of that journey to becoming the leader that you are, especially in that, I think, this grit story.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And honestly, sales was not something I ever thought I would be doing. I don't think most people go to school, or at least not when I was in college or high school, said, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be in sales. I think maybe people say that today, but they did not when I was in college. And I was an art major, little known fact.
Wow.
And it was my senior year of college, and my dad not so kindly suggested that I get a real job and a real career. And so I swapped it to the last minute to advertising. And I spent about 6 weeks in my first job before I realized, oh no, like this corporate life is not for me. Like this is not going to go well. I have to be here at 8 o'clock. I have to stay here till 5. Oh my gosh, they're going to tell me when I can take vacation. What? Like the real world did not sink in until I was in it. And I really quickly realized, I don't know if I would ever be a really good employee. And that assumption was correct very early on. And so I started in this journey of entrepreneurialism.
So you swapped for working 14-hour days instead of 8-hour days.
80-hour weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Really smart, Amanda.
I know your work ethic over there. So I'm pretty sure that was not a good swap if you were going for hours in a day.
No, it was definitely not. Because I think my first year in sales, I made $24,000 the entire year. Like that was my first year. And I was legitimately working 12, 15-hour days, literally sharing cars, did everything I owned fit in a car. It was no joke. And I think a huge part of why I love that about our business kind of foundation is we started our first business, and starting my business was really the first job I had out of college. And it was in 2005. So take it back 15 years. And that was right at the beginning of the recession. Mm-hmm. And it was a really beautiful gift because I didn't know business any other way. And I remember talking to all these people and working with all these different companies, and they would always talk about, well, it's just not the same. And to me, the naivety of what's a recession? What are they talking about? Was such a blessing and such a gift. And it was a very long trial and error, life of hard knocks experience. I had no formal sales training, no formal leadership training. 100% of it was just learn it on the job. And then you keep doing it until you finally figure it out. And that is how it started.
Before we jump into the study, which we've got to get to, because I'm telling you, for those that are watching and most of you are listening, this is all printed out, the study. It's significant. But and there's some takeaways we need to jump into, especially as trust is concerned. But what's a top takeaway from your first 10 years in sales and leadership?
Oh, that's so good. I would say my biggest takeaway is that I thought that working more hours meant more success. And I was wrong. It does not. And I was conditioned for a really long time that your worth is in your sales results. And that the more you work, the more important you are. And I think the biggest takeaway is stepping back of going, my worth has nothing to do with my work. Not whatsoever. What I do does not define who I am. And I would say we have really strict cutoff times in our family now. If we can't fit it between the hours of 9 and 5:30, it's really not going to fit in our life. And it makes us work really efficiently and really effectively. But the idea of 60 and 80-hour works and grind it out till your eyes bleed is no longer a philosophy that I believe in.
And in the midst of that, you grew an immensely successful business, and then exited that and basically built another one in unbelievable time. And it's been amazing to watch. And I don't know anybody more disciplined as a couple than you two. As far as I know, we were talking to our mutual friend, Jason Dorsey, and you guys were just in Mexico together, and all four of us were together recently. And he said, I tell you, this guy Rory, he just like, it's time. It's 5:30 or 6:30. It's like, he's done. Puts the phone away and he is with the kids, or he's with, he's like, he is present. Pretty cool. Lots more we could learn from you as leaders, sales experts, and really business builders. But this business that you have is Brand Builders. And, it's interesting, some of the findings. There's so much here. So I'm going to ask some specific things about the trends. At first, here you go. You're talking to a trust guy. I'm like, brand, whatever. I want to really be trusted, not just appear it, which is what a lot of people seem to try to do in marketing branding space. And, I'm always trying to really help people build trustworthiness. And yet, you know what? If they don't know it, they don't see it, they don't hear even what is real, then you don't make any impact. So I was fascinated by some of this work and some of what people are saying, especially across generations. So let's jump into first, why the study and why now?
Yeah. Oh, man. When we started out on this venture with the Center for Generational Kinetics over a year ago now, it was over a year ago because we launched the study in January of 21. What we really wanted to do was go, hey, are all of these hypotheses that we have actually true? Like, we see that personal branding is the future of marketing, but is that just our imagination? Is that just the way we want it to be? And so we really wanted to go out and get some third-party data and field this national research study, because we also said, if we're not right, please let us find out right now before we get too far into the weeds here and get too deep. And so we started on this. We spent 6 months fielding the study, compiling the data, analyzing the data, summating the data, and working with this third-party research firm and really helping us figure out what are the questions that we really wanted the answers to. And when we got the data back, luckily, a lot of our assumptions were proven true, but a lot of them were proven wrong, which was equally validating of going, oh man, we had this really wrong. And to be able to take this data and to help other people expedite their personal brands, i.e. their businesses, has been revolutionary in the last 6 months.
It's very interesting. So when you say, let's jump into a few things, and there's so much more here. And in fact, you've given free access. Thank you so much. David.freebrandstudy.com. We'll have that in the notes. Kent will have that in the notes for everybody. David.freebrandstudy.com. And I want everybody to hear, I know we'll do it at the end, but your main website for Brand Builders is?
brandbuildersgroup.com.
brandbuildersgroup.com. So you can find out a whole lot more. And fortunate to be in a mastermind group with your husband, Rory, and just know you both as a couple. But let's get in here and look at this. So first of all, why does even this branding stuff matter to senior leaders?
Yeah. So this is the part that was not even on our radar. When we set out to figure out what do Americans consider a personal brand, what industries is it most important for, what professions, what titles, really, truly, executives and CEOs and entrepreneurs really weren't on our radar. A huge part of our audience tend to be the solopreneur. I would say the entrepreneur, but it's the typical personal brand, the speaker, author, trainer, coach, podcaster, consultant. But when this study came back, there were 3 really amazing correlations with this one underlying current around trust. And these are the 3 kind of top level things is it came back as the first thing is that personal branding truly is the future of marketing. And Gen Z specifically, as we highlight this by generations, literally said that personal branding to them is not a thing of vanity or popularity. This is literally an essential and critical part of how they do business.
Hey everyone, a quick interruption here to share some big news. April 12th through the 14th, you are invited to the Trusted Leaders Summit. What makes a powerful event is bringing together amazing people in a way that actually makes an impact in the world. We're talking about a get-together that is packed with immediately useful content. You'll hear from top leaders like John Foley, the former lead solo pilot for the Blue Angels, Harvard professor Allison Shapira, and more incredible global experts. Get your tickets before they're gone at trustedleadersummit.com and join us in becoming even more trusted leaders. We can't wait to see you there.
Okay, so let's talk about this one for a moment because I'm going to bring up a couple thoughts from this one. So it's the future, and I would think, it's vanity. It's kind of like, you're just a look and whatever. And yet, I think this is jumping toward the back of the study now, but I was astounded. Let me see if I even have it here. Elon Musk has 60 million total followers. Bitcoin has 3.25 million. You take people, right? Let's see. Cristiano Ronaldo has 587 million followers. Coca-Cola, the big, massive brand of Coca-Cola, has less than a fifth of that many followers. So you talk about the importance, and I think if I was going to jump, and I didn't see this in the study, but T-Mobile, I mean, he's not there anymore. The CEO that was a part of just rejuvenating and revitalizing and growing T-Mobile, amazing, but people could relate to that human. So if we think that the human element, like it increases trust, tell me a little bit more about why this is, why it's significant to kind of have a personal brand. Let me step back for 1 second, because what I see, and I've seen this in just my research on the trust work, is we trust people over brands. So there's a truth there. But what does that mean for our future?
Yeah, so here's a couple of things I think are really important to note is there's 3 parts of this, right? In order for someone to trust you, they have to be able to see you. They have to be able to get to know you. And in today's world, they have to be able to learn from you, right? And it's one thing to be trusted by the people who know you and your small surroundings, but that's not how we live anymore. We live in a global landscape. And with all the conversations around the metaverse, it's not going away. It's amplifying in an expedited fashion. So when you talk about if personal branding is all about really accelerating trust, well, then you got to think about, well, how do I do that with the masses? How do I do that with people who don't get to know me, who don't sit at the dinner table with me, who don't come into my office, who don't have regular conversations with me? And then you say, well, I have to be seen. I have to be in front of them, because the truth is, if people don't know you, then they cannot trust you, nor do business with you, or be loyal to you, or anything else with you. But it's not just a matter of being seen anymore. It's like people really want to know you. Like even starting this interview today, I loved what you said. You said, hey, like in addition to talking about the business stuff, I have found that my listeners really like to know the personal side. So don't be afraid to talk about your family and your kids. That is personal branding, because people really want to know that part of you more than the business. They much more care about what did you dress up as Halloween with your kids versus what, new business offering do you have, truly. And then there is an expectation today, wholeheartedly, that you need to give me value. You need to teach me. I need to learn from you way before I would ever be willing to give you my money. And that's not like a great idea. Like, hey, give content out for free, give value. Like that's no longer a suggestion. That is an expectation in business today that I will learn from you way before I will ever give you my money. Because the truth is, with Google and the internet and social media and TikTok and YouTube, it's like I can learn just about anything I need to know online. So if you're not going to give it to me for free, why would I ever pay you?
So before we get into number 2, what is one specific thing that we should be doing, leaders should do, to build a high trust personal brand that will affect their corporation?
It is. I know this is going to sound so simple. Let people get to know you and create a forum in which they can do that. Now, the obvious one is social media. That doesn't have to be your choice, right? I don't tell everyone to get on social media. Social media is not for everyone, but it is the most obvious platform to reach the masses. But others are like, how involved are you in your local community, your local church? How much FaceTime do your employees actually get with you? And I would say FaceTime today is also considered on camera, right? Do they actually know you have kids? Do they know where you're from? Do they know what your hobbies are? Do they know why you started this business? Do they know why you're still in this business? Do they know what you did before this business? And most employees don't. Most clients don't. But that is an essence of how do I want to be seen and how do I want to be known, or what do I want to be known for? And then you actually have to go out and do those things, right? It's like if you want to be seen as a trusted leader, Well, then you have to show people that there is a level of transparency and vulnerability and authenticity. And it's like that has to do with opening up the book. And, it's like opening the doors and going, here it is. Here I am.
So number 2, big finding as far as in the overall studies is that it actually is highly profitable to deal with this personal brand, creating a high trust personal brand in a real, and I would keep pushing in a real way, not a fake brand, but really letting people know who you really are. Americans are willing to spend more on products and services from individuals with established personal brands. Number 1, of course, because they know you, but tell us more.
Yeah, so 67%, so that's 2/3 of Americans say that they are more willing to spend more money, and that's the key word, more money, not just money, but more money with an established personal brand versus a company. Now, some of that comes back to another statistic that I think is equally as important that says the majority of Americans said, in fact, it was around 80%, and if you take just millennials, 88% of millennials, and I also have to reference this, millennials are actually considered age 26 to 44. So some of you have been denying that you are a millennial for a really long time. Surprise, you are one, but 26 to 44, that's what we define as a millennial. But 88% of them said that they are more likely to promote, recommend, buy, and not just buy, but actually tell other people to buy, but also they're more likely to stay with your company. So retention is involved. They're more likely to refer other people to work for your company, invest in your company, all these different things. If the personal values of the founder or executive aligns with their personal values. So this is no longer just about consumer decisions. This is about retention. And in the middle of what they're calling the Great Resignation, I would say retention is a really big deal to pretty much every single leader at every scale right now. And you got to be going, okay, if this whole concept of this resignation is happening, then we've got to ask, well, why? Why?
Absolutely. I'm reading one stat. It might have been the one you talked about from your study. 82% of all Americans agree that companies are more influential if their executives have a personal brand they know and follow. So people will spend more money. Finally, there's this trust accelerator. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite statistics, but it did not come from our study. So this is actually a study done by Social Chorus, and it says that 95% of millennials say their most trusted source of product information is their friends. So just hold for a second, because when I first read that, I did not know to be terrified or fascinated, right? Because like 95% of millennials say their most trusted source of product information are your friends. And then I was like thinking about all my friends. I'm going, oh Lord, like this is a problem, right? But then like I compared that to our study where it says that 74% of Americans, 74, that's 3/4, say that they are more likely to trust you if you have an established personal brand. So we started asking ourselves this question of what is it? And then something dawned on us, and we went back to an earlier data point that we had in the study, which asked the questions, what is a personal brand? What is it? Now, as a company, Brand Builders Group, we say that a personal brand is just the extension of your reputation, right? It's the digitization and the monetization of your reputation. That's what we say. But here's what Americans said. Americans said that a personal brand to them is simply someone who is recognizable. So pause with that, go back to this Social Core stat that said 95% of millennials say their most trusted source of product information as their friends. And then it all comes together. Well, of course it is, because that's who they see, know, like, and trust. Of course it's their friends, because to them, those are people who have an established personal brands. Those are the people that are recognizable to them.
So we don't have $1 billion budget, and we can't and maybe it doesn't matter. anyway, if Coca-Cola is less recognized than some things in a way. But what are a couple things, and you do many at Brand Builders Group, but what are a couple things we can think about doing to be more recognizable so that we're more trusted, so that we get to make a greater impact in the ways we feel called?
Yeah, so I'm going to share one data point that kind of connects into this, because one of the things that if you don't have this huge budget, right, and most don't, right, there's very few that would say I have $1 million budgets to do something like this. But let's just say you have a tiny budget, right? This was my favorite data point of the whole study because it blew my mind. And we asked Americans, what are the most important factors to you when deciding whom to purchase from? Whom to hire, right? And we ask things like, is it important that you have a best-selling book, a New York Times best-selling book? Do you need to have viral YouTube videos, a TED Talk? Do they need to have like tons of media? Do you need to have like a huge business? Do you need to have, all these different things? None of them. It was none of those things. The most important, in fact, 62% of Americans said the most important factor when deciding whom to hire to them was, did you have testimonials? Like, did you have people who would put it on record that you are who you say you are and you do what you say you're going to do? And that's amazing because that's the cheapest, fastest, easiest thing that we can possibly do is to get testimonials. So when you think about like, what can I do in the cheapest, fastest, easiest fashion? Is to get other people to validate that you are who you are, you are who you say you are, and you do what you say you're going to do. It's getting testimonials. And I would say the exact same thing happens within an organization, right? It's getting them from your employees, from your executives, from, not just your clients, but from the people who actually are in the organization.
That's amazing. And there's a whole lot more. I'm reading through that part of the study. What is most important down to least important? And funny enough, on this list of maybe 15 items, last is they have a podcast. So I guess we don't need to worry about that. But thank you to all of you that are listening today to the Trusted Leader Show. And this is super fun to share this truth. Hey, one last. I want to ask you a couple personal things before we bring this to a close. But one last item that you think might be just important to share from the study. And remember, to everybody, you gave us a special spot. Thank you for that. I put my paper everywhere. David.freebrandstudy.com, and you can get this whole study. It is fascinating, and it's beautifully done. And in fact, when we started doing our study in a new way, we used to do trust trends way back and some of my grad work, but we also partnered with the same firm that you partner with, very good friends of ours, Center for Generational Kinetics, who are wonderful people, of course, and dear friends. But yours is just, it's not, I love about it, it's not just brilliant, work, it's beautifully laid out. It's like, oh, I get it. Oh, wow, I can apply that. So, thank you for that. Everybody can go find it there. One just little surprise or nugget more from the study.
Oh, titles. I thought this was too fascinating as what titles hold the most credibility in the marketplace. So when considering how to position yourself and package yourself in the marketplace, what are the titles that Americans consider the most credible? And I love the ones that completely throw me off because this was not on my radar. The first one was expert, right? Are you
Can't
an
everybody
expert?
call themselves an expert? Oh, I'm an expert. You're an expert. We think we're experts, certainly at Trust, but it's like, man, some of these people can just say whatever, right?
Yeah, it's just so funny because in our company, there's this running joke and they call it AJ's Law because I say this all the time. And my philosophy is that you only have to be an expert if you know more than the audience in which you're speaking to, right? And I think there's variations and levels of expertise, right? It's like, I am an expert at changing diapers. Like I've been like up to my eyeballs in it for 5 years. Like I could teach anyone how to do this, right? But then it's like, you talk about personal branding. I'm an expert in that, but I also consider myself an expert in sales. Do other people? Probably. But I think there's these variations of, it's like, would I say that I'm an expert compared to a mom who has 8 kids? Probably not. But I am to a new parent.
Sure.
So I think there's these levels of that. But then the other ones I thought too were really amazing, which was CEO and founder. So expert, CEO, and founder. And then, we have a podcast too, so I can totally dish on the podcast. But then like the least credible title is host.
Yeah.
It's like host and these generic titles. But that goes back to what people are really looking for is, can they trust you because you know something that they don't, right? That you are a credible source of information. And they tie that to, well, if you're a CEO, you must know something. If you're a founder, that must mean you've done something. If you're an expert, you can help. So I think all of these things just really correlate back to this underlying current of trust.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it is kind of funny, the host thing, because, to me, the host, I don't even think of myself at all. Like it's been amazing to see how now 70 countries are listening, and we have this impact. It's more followers than some other names. Anyway, we're really grateful for what we're doing. But this podcast thing, for the first time, I was on a TV interview not very long ago, and I got introduced as this, trust expert, author, and podcaster. And I'm like, I'm not a I mean, I certainly don't think of myself as one, but it has been really fun. The cool thing about it is I learn the most from the great, brilliant people that I interview, and it keeps me fresh in a way beyond reading and research and, working in companies and all that. So anyway, I think it is funny because I kind of cringe when someone called me that, because I certainly don't think of that, but I guess that's what we're doing sometimes. So super, super valuable research. Let's get back to personal for just a couple seconds. And one is, what do you, outside of all this research, just in your leadership life or family, what are you learning now?
Oh man, I'll tell you, on a business front, I am obsessed with learning tax strategy right now.
We need to get more exciting quicker. We're going to lose everybody.
Y'all, it is one of the most exciting things that I have learned in a really long time, to go, oh man. And I'll tell you what it was, is I did not trust the accounting firms that we were using. There was a lack of trust. Why? Because there was a lack of education that they provided. It's like, just send me your stuff and I'll do it. I'm like, no, I don't. I want to understand. I need you to tell me. And it wasn't happening. And so I started diving into all these courses and classes and ebooks and reading all these books. And it has been one of the most, I know it sounds crazy because it seems so boring, but it's been one of the most fascinating and invigorating things to go, I understand this to a way that I now know how to help my own business and my own family in ways that even accounting firms weren't willing to do.
Wow. I'll give you a new job.
Empowering.
You can come look at our taxes. Because that is something
really
I don't want to be an expert in. Yeah, I bet.
Well, and honestly, it's why I got into it. And then I kind of got obsessed with it when I learned that so many other people who considered themselves professionals in the field, I was bringing ideas to them that they had never heard. And it was a great reminder to me, as like, the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. And I've been infatuated with tax strategy, however boring that may seem.
Two things in that. One thing is it brought back one of our early pieces of research, at least a few years ago, that basically found mortgage brokers and real estate professionals, almost nobody goes back to the first one they ever had unless they were family and they had to, because the first experience they had buying a home, it was so unclear, and they would ask a question and they felt dumb because no one would answer that. They were like, oh, just sign here. And you feel the first time you buy a home, you feel like you're signing your life away and you don't understand. It's like, no, and they kind of rush you through it. And the data shows that if you would, on that first time home buyer, just spend the time to explain it, help them understand, go slow and not push through and try to get 10 homes sold today, that they would actually stick with you for the next home. So to that very point, hey, I don't want to, I know we got to land this plane, but I do have to ask because I'm a curious human. What's one just tax idea that you might have for all of us that would help, especially founders and business owners like me, or maybe others listening? One idea.
If you are an LLC, make sure that you classify yourself underneath the 199A classification that allows you to get a 20% deduction on all pass-through revenue. And it single-handedly in 2020 saved us $80,000 of just making sure that we were classified correctly, because our previous accountants had classified us as consultants. We're not consultants. That's not what we do. And we didn't classify it. So by actually learning what it was and what our true classification was, which we're a training company, that's what we do. We were able to qualify for the 199A deduction and saved us $80,000 in taxes.
Wow.
One simple thing. Really simple thing.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more, but let's just add, let me follow that up with this. I'm a sub S, I'm a corporation. My company is. Does it work the same in a corporation or not?
Yeah, so you can, it's the 199A still works for an S Corp.
Okay.
If you're a C Corp, not so much.
Right.
But if you're an S Corp or if you're an LLC filing as an S Corp, it still works. It just depends on how much you're paying yourself in ordinary income, because those will, basically net each other out depending on how you pay yourself. But yes, I would definitely look into it. Definitely bring it all to a fine. I am not a CPA.
Let's put all this. This is not this is not advice. We're going to say this
and
is
then
not
talk to a professional.
But in one podcast, in what podcast do you go from family to branding to tax advice? I mean, this is all free of charge. So this is exciting. I love it. AJ, thank you so much. This is the Trusted Leader Show, so we always end with one very specific question. Who is a leader you trust and why?
Oh, yeah. So I had two, and I'm really debating in my mind back and forth who it is. But I'm gonna go with, her name is Mary Sobin, and she was an executive at McDonald's for a really long time, but then she left the corporate world probably about 10 years ago and started a performance consulting and a high fast-paced entrepreneurial company, kind of startup mode. And she works with the CEOs, and she's been my business coach for the last year. And there's not a ton of people that I would say, like, give it to me straight and I'd actually implement it. But I'll tell you why. It's like, she gives me the hard truth, but always surrounded with this like core reminder of, I know who you are. I know who you are, AJ, and this is why I'm giving it to you. And she really does know who I am. And there's just very few people in my life that I would say, whatever you say, I'm going to take it into account, and I'm going to pull something from it. But every single time I meet with her, she is pulling something out that I didn't say in that conversation. So I know that she's spending time on me when I'm not around. And that's one of the things where I know that she knows me, because she knows things that I'm doing that I didn't tell her. And how can she do that? It's because she's connected to me on social. She's listening to our podcast. She's in touch with my team, but she's getting to know me on a level where there is, I see you, I know you, I learn from you, I trust you. But I trust her the most because she gives me the hard truth, but always in a way that's going to make me better.
I see you. I know you. What a thing to be able to say about your team or anybody you serve, or your kids for that matter. Getting down on a knee instead of shouting from across the family room. AJ, I'm looking forward to seeing you and your family in Orlando. We both speak at the same event. I will not have my family with. I'll be a little bit more in and out, but you'll have your family with, and I think we might get to do dinner with some friends briefly before you guys maybe go hit Disney.
It's going to be awesome. We're going to be Mickey Mouse ears in tow. We're ready for it.
I will be not headed to Disney at that point. But thank you, and what a wonderful treat to have you on and share with our listeners. You can look at the show notes, trustedleadershow.com, for everything we talked about. Remember, brandbuildersgroup.com. This has been the Trusted Leader Show. Until next time, stay trusted.